Howdy, you goddamn mud-blooded Americans. And even if you're not American and you're watching this, you know, this video makes you an American citizen. A mud-blooded, thick-blooded, hot-blooded American citizen, all right? So let's get to blaming here. Got the car in first gear. We're going to pull off right into the middle of the road here. So watch how I clinically do this little pull-off right here. So the reason I gave you guys a little demonstration of my pull-off right there is because this video is going to be about clutch work. Now, I had a comment on one of my last videos asking me about how the clutch is on this car. The person in question who commented said that he had some suspicions about how the clutch was, if it was in fact a good or a bad clutch on this Toyota GR86, aka the Koenigsegg Regera, aka the Pagani Huayra, aka the Cyclone, aka the Sexmobile. Okay, so here's my thoughts. Now, I learned on this car. I got this car in September of 2022, and I learned on this car. I had to drive it out of the dealership while I was simultaneously shaking in my boots because I had to do a hill start to get out of the dealership. I stalled 15 times upon my first jaunt in this car, and it was very hard for me to learn on this car. And that's just, honestly, but let's just preface this whole video by saying that it all comes down to a skill issue with me. That's all this comes down to is a skill issue. So you're gonna hear me complaining about the clutch in this video, but I'm also gonna be talking up the clutch in this video, but it all comes down to a skill issue. Me being bad at this clutch or subpar at this clutch is all on me, to be honest, because there's some other guy, Johnny Toyota, could probably drive this car and just drive it perfectly well to the pinnacle of its ingenuity. And listen, I'm not sitting here saying I'm a bad driver, because it's the complete opposite. I oftentimes have people roll their windows down and ask me if I'm Ayrton Senna. I oftentimes have that happen. So clearly I'm not a bad driver, but it does come down to a skill issue at the end of the day. So I learned on this car, for one. So I've struggled with these same minute problems since I got the car. And I don't know if this is for sure, but I'm sure every single stick shift automobile has its own quirks and features, as Doug DeMuro would say, has its own things about it that are fucked and its own things about it that are great. Now, let's go over the things that are great before I start here. Clutch, buttery as a motherfucker. The feel of the stick is honestly fucking phenomenal. I'm not gonna lie. There's few things that give me the same feeling as pulling this stick lever. Fornicating with a beautiful woman would be one of them. What else would be something good? Eating a great meal. Now, I have home-cooked meals. I have a chef because I'm a rich human. I'm very, very wealthy. I have a chef that comes to my house and cooks for me whatever I want. So I often eat maybe 3 to 4 tomahawks a day. That gives me the same amount of pleasure as touching this stick right here. Just groping the stick and just having my way with it and maneuvering it throughout all 6 gauges that it has. Now, what has my experience been with this clutch and shifter? For me, in my opinion, it's pretty hard to get it smooth. Now, I don't know if that's me being bad at the clutch, at driving stick, or if it's just because it's a sports car that it's like that. Second gear, for the most part, is extremely hard. Well, I won't say extremely hard, but it's pretty difficult to get a smooth first to second shift in this car. The gear ratios from first to second to third are really, like, the first gear is insanely short. And I understand that this is meant to be like a fucking track sports car, so that really doesn't really mean anything, but I'm just saying, if you're gonna daily this thing, it is a little bit difficult in the early gears to get this thing going, because, and I say that because I do have some sort of reference point. My girlfriend's dad has like a 2005 Mini Cooper. It's red. It's like candy apple red with some black rims, fucking supercharged front wheel drive. It's a beautiful automobile, and that thing is leaps and bounds easier to drive than this car. And it has a fucked up clutch. The clutch is as heavy as a fucking anvil. Luckily, me driving the car, as for example, I just hit legs today and I did 6 plates on each side for slow and controlled leg press. Now, you guys don't know nothing about slow and controlled. I bet you motherfuckers, when you go to the gym, you put as much weight onto that leg press and you just wing it. If you don't do slow and controlled sets on the leg press, you're not gonna grow. So take it from a guy like me. I have 2 redwood trees hanging off both of my hips. I know what the fuck I'm talking about when it comes to legs, and that's why the heavy clutch on the Mini doesn't affect me. But realistically, that car is so much easier to drive. It's way more seamless, and I know that it's probably just a sports car thing, but if I'm being real, in my experience, this car is pretty hard to drive. And I know, like I said, it's a skill issue, but I do have trouble, even still to this day. I've been driving this car in September, I think on September 15th, it's gonna be 2 years of ownership, and I still feel like I am shit at driving this car. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm passable. I mean, you guys see me in the videos, I whip this thing around like it's a fucking go-kart, but I just make it look easy because I'm a go-to driver. Like, I'm the second coming of Lewis Hamilton. So I make the shit look easy, but realistically, the shit is pretty difficult as this truck pulls out directly in front of me. I guess he had time. I mean, but this Camry is just, that's ridiculous. That's gonna get somebody killed, that Camry. But that's what you get when you drive with Camry drivers. That's the shit that you're gonna see. So yeah, I mean, is the clutch good on this car? Yeah, I would say it's good. Do you have to be a fucking serious race car driver to operate this thing? Yes, as well. That's just my personal opinion on the matter. The clutch is very smooth. The bite point, I saw one of the comments saying that the bite point is very far up, and yes, that is true. The bite point on this car for the clutch is insanely high up on the clutch. It's literally like 6/8 of the way up. It's very, very high up, but you get used to that when you drive this car, so it's not even really that big of a deal. Once you drive this car for a couple weeks, you'd get used to the high bite point. That's just what it is. It's a simple operation to get it going. 1500 RPM, let off the clutch. It's really, that's the simple part. Once you get into the 4th, 5th, and 6th gears, the clutch is like nobody's business, feels like an automatic. It's just those first couple gears that are a bit of a challenge, which, you know, I get, it's not, I mean, here's the thing. I guess people would say it's not fun to drive a car unless you got some sort of a challenge to deal with, but that's fun on track day. But when you're 2 years dailying the motherfucker, it does come a little bit cumbersome when you're in stop and go traffic and first gear tops out at 10 miles an hour at 7,000 RPM. So that's the little struggle that you got to deal with when you have this car. But that's what you sign up for when you get a fucking Gazoo Racing 86. I don't know what to tell you. I don't really have a problem. Like, I would rate this clutch. I have clutch experience with 2 clutches. The Mini Cooper, the 2005 Mini Cooper, I'd rate that a 10 out of 10 clutch because that shit drives like nobody's business. I barely have to do shit to drive that. Now, a motherfucker like you would have to like start taking steroids in order to operate that Mini because how heavy the clutch is. But someone like me with these gigantic fucking teardrop goddamn rainforest quads that I got going on, it doesn't really affect me. So I guess that's all I would say about the clutch operation on this car.
Time, space, matter, the dark matter Stargate, I now activate through the 100 meeting point of my spirit in this dimension and all others.